Days turned into weeks, and slowly the whispers in the hallways began to change. He was no longer just the target of jokes, he was becoming the one people sought when confusion clouded their notebooks. It started small, with one boy after science class saying, "Hey, could you explain that circuit thing again?" Then another girl in math hesitated near his desk before mumbling, "I didn't get the fractions problem, could you maybe?" He smiled and nodded every time, never once saying no, never once reminding them of the times they had laughed. Instead, he used analogies, stories, and tricks that made even the hardest subjects feel like puzzles that could be solved. One afternoon in the library, a group gathered around his table. He drew diagrams on scrap paper, turning physics into rivers and dams, turning history dates into a timeline shaped like a journey, making everything less intimidating. For the first time, the library was lively, filled with murmurs of learning instead of lonely silence. Even teachers noticed the shift. One remarked during class, "It seems some of you are finally catching up, whatever you're doing, keep it up." Eyes flicked toward him, and he felt a strange mix of pride and shyness. But not everyone was happy with the change. The bully, tall and broad-shouldered, watched his growing influence with irritation. "You all treat him like some savior," he sneered to his friends. "He's just small and desperate for attention." But even within the bully's circle, cracks were forming. One of his closest friends had secretly approached the boy for help with math. He had been failing quietly, too embarrassed to admit it, until desperation pushed him. The small boy explained patiently, using coins as fractions and a clock face to demonstrate angles. When the friend finally solved the problem on his own, he whispered, "Thanks, man. If I'd asked anyone else, they'd have laughed." That gratitude was something the bully couldn't ignore when his friend told him later. Still, pride was a cage he couldn't yet break. Weeks later, the bully himself faced a crisis. In English class, he was assigned to give a presentation. He tried, stammering through the first few sentences, but his notes were a mess and his voice cracked. Laughter erupted, not at the small boy this time, but at him. The teacher sighed, marking something on her sheet, and said, "You really need to put in more effort." Humiliated, the bully sat down, fists clenched under the desk. After class, when the room emptied, the small boy lingered. He walked up and quietly said, "If you want, I can help you prepare next time." The bully snapped, "I don't need your pity." But the boy only shrugged. "It's not pity. It's practice. Everyone struggles with something." He turned to leave, but those words stayed like a stone in the bully's shoe. That night, staring at his messy notes, the bully felt a reluctant tug. The next morning, he cornered the small boy near the lockers and muttered, "Fine. Teach me. But if you tell anyone, you'll regret it." The boy nodded calmly. "Deal." They began meeting in the library after school. At first, the bully sat with his arms crossed, rolling his eyes at the simple exercises. But as the boy broke down paragraphs into building blocks, explained tone as if it were music, and coached him to breathe between sentences, the bully realized he was improving. Slowly, he stopped rolling his eyes. One afternoon, after practicing a speech 3 times, he looked at the boy and admitted, "This actually helps. I don't know why you bother though. After all the crap I gave you." The boy looked at him steadily. "Because everyone deserves a chance to be better. You gave me plenty of reasons to hate you. But I'd rather give you one reason to change." The bully had no response. For the first time, he felt something break inside his chest, something that had been hardened for years. On presentation day, he stood in front of the class with a steadier voice. He paused where he was supposed to, looked at the audience instead of his shoes, and delivered his piece. The teacher blinked in surprise, then smiled. "Much improved. Well done." The class clapped politely, and though it wasn't thunderous applause, it was enough. As he sat down, he glanced at the small boy, who gave him a quiet nod. He felt a strange warmth in his chest, not the rush of victory in a fight, but something cleaner, something better. Meanwhile, more students began joining the study sessions. At lunch, instead of sitting alone, the boy now found himself surrounded by peers scribbling notes, asking questions, laughing not at him, but with him. "How do you make it sound so easy?" one girl asked after he explained a chemistry reaction using a cooking recipe as an example. He chuckled. Because learning should feel like cooking, you mix things together until something new happens. They laughed, but the concept stuck. Word spread to other classes, and soon even juniors and seniors began peeking into the library to listen. The teachers noticed, and one day the principal herself visited. She watched quietly from the doorway as the boy drew on the board, explaining geometry by comparing it to the angles of a soccer field. Students leaned forward, engaged, some even smiling. Later, she told the teachers, "Whatever he's doing, it's working better than most of our methods." Still, he didn't let the praise get to his head. Each night he went home, tired but fulfilled, writing in his diary, "They are starting to see me, not for my height, not for their jokes, but for my ideas." Maybe this is how change begins: one problem solved, one mind opened. Yet even with this progress, he knew the road wasn't smooth. Some students still mocked quietly, whispering nicknames when they thought he couldn't hear. But the difference was that now, others defended him. Once, when someone muttered "dwarf genius" under their breath, another classmate snapped back, "At least he's actually helping us." "What have you done?" For the first time, someone else bore his shield, and he felt the weight on his shoulders lighten. Even the bullies' circle softened. One by one, they started showing up at the study sessions, pretending they were there by accident until it became obvious they wanted to learn too. And slowly, the leader himself began to change. One evening after another library session, he stayed behind and said quietly, I used to think being strong meant making others feel small. But you're smaller than me, yet somehow you make everyone around you feel bigger. How do you do that?" The boy smiled. "Strength isn't about size. It's about how you lift others up, not push them down." The bully looked away, swallowing hard. He didn't admit it out loud, but in that moment he realized he no longer hated the boy. He respected him. And that respect was spreading through the school like a silent revolution. Picture a colorful, exaggerated cartoon scene bursting with energy, humor, and drama, much like something you might find in a satirical comic strip or an animated sitcom. The environment is a picturesque lakeside setting, but instead of focusing on realism, every element is stylized, bold, and full of playful exaggeration. The grass is greener than green, the sky is a perfect bubblegum blue dotted with cartoonishly fluffy clouds, and the shimmering lake reflects everything like a giant mirror painted with smooth strokes. At the center of this cartoon world sits a quaint wooden cabin, designed with exaggerated rustic charm. Its logs are thick and uneven, drawn with heavy black outlines. The door is oversized and dramatically locked with a cartoon-style golden padlock almost comically large, hanging from a shiny iron latch. The padlock glimmers as if it has a personality of its own, silently mocking anyone who dares to open it. A quirky private sign dangles crookedly from the door, swinging slightly, painted in bold, goofy letters that leave no room for misinterpretation. Standing in front of this cabin is the cabin owner, a calm, unshakable figure portrayed as the archetypal straight man in a comedy sketch. He is tall and sturdy, with squared shoulders, wearing a red and black flannel shirt, faded blue jeans, and comically oversized boots that seem rooted into the ground. His arms are crossed tightly over his chest, and his expression is frozen in a mix of smug amusement and firm resolve. His cartoon eyes are drawn as half-closed, with a raised eyebrow, suggesting that he is completely unimpressed by the tantrum happening before him. He radiates an aura of "you're not winning this one," with his stance wide and immovable, almost like a brick wall come to life. Opposite him, dominating the scene with a whirlwind of exaggerated emotions, is the HOA president. She is the embodiment of frustration and entitlement, her entire body language dialed up to 11. Her hair, styled in an elaborate suburban bob, is frizzed at the edges from the sheer heat of her fury, almost vibrating in jagged cartoon lines that radiate outward. Her eyes are wide, pupils tiny, eyebrows arched so high they nearly touch her hairline. Her mouth is open in a dramatic scream, showing sharp triangular teeth like a cartoon villain. Her fists are clenched tightly, shaking furiously in the air above her head in the classic pose of pure exasperation. Her clothing adds to the comedy, a pastel pink blouse tucked into high-waisted slacks, paired with high heels that sink awkwardly into the grassy ground, clearly impractical for the lakeside setting. A pearl necklace bounces with her movements, exaggerated motion lines surrounding it as if even her jewelry is angry. Sweat droplets, drawn as blue teardrop shapes, fly off her forehead, emphasizing the cartoon intensity of her rage. Around her head, red jagged lines and storm cloud doodles hover, a classic cartoon shorthand for someone